Good evening, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to round 9, the penultimate round of the season here with ACC Race Nation. And we are at the Spielberg circuit of the Red Bull Ring here in Austria. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator as always in the GT3 series. What a spectacle we have on our hands. This wonderful circuit of just 4.3 kilometres will be hosting a barnstorming race, I'm sure. The Red Bull Ring, tight in terms of distance, in terms of the track length, 10 corners, arguably not the most technical circuit on the calendar this season, so that means the drivers have got a plentiful opportunities to have a surprise in store. We could see some very, very close grids in qualifying. Really excited about tonight's race. It's going to be a fun journey, I'm fairly certain. But in any case, we have drivers already circulating on track. We're following the Ferrari of Kelty122. If you don't know who Kelty is, you might not have seen him for a while. In terms of a week, that is, of course, Richard Gearman. He made his debut last week, of course, did Richard. He's back in tonight. So we're all on trackside camera with him at the moment. And like I said before, there's plenty of promise today to see the drivers having fights with others that you wouldn't expect to. You know, a bad qualifying session here could put you in the mid-pack, which certainly would be less than ideal. Nikola Gradan circulating in the Ferrari. We've got Miroslav Grasic. We've got Ardi van Sloot. Rover Rakatamanga's at the side of what looks to be turn 3, but he's back in the pits now. Danny Zoutenbayer as well. Steve Hall. We've got Tony Sokolov, we've got Mark Chapman, Dennis Penders, Scott Clark, Stuart Packham currently leading the way, not just on circuit, but also being our championship leader going into the penultimate race of the series. Linus Littrix, you've got Josip Kosic, Martin Van Rienen out there, Tony Manley in the Aston Martin. Good to see him back, Neil Wright. We haven't seen him for a few races in the Porsche. We also have Kevin McEntee, Simon Whiting, Michael van der Waal, Daniel Danu, the man in second place in the drivers' standings. John Wells in the top 10 in qualifying so far, which is really nice to see. Rich Jarram as well. You've got Tom Creed back today after missing last round. You've got Jordan Harding, and back to what will be a spinning Richard Gearman on the exit of turn 1, and he gets collected by Dennis Penders. So our first incident already on track. Bit of an accident, that one, to be fair. There's not much that Richard Gearman could have done. He was already off the road and having his own incidents as he went round turn 1. But in terms of the driver, let's get a proper rundown of where everybody is. We've got 11 minutes and 30 seconds left in the session in qualifying so far ahead of our 1 hour race. So Stuart Packham in the pits, he is on pole. You've got Kosic in second place, the man who was looking like he could have made a dent into Stuart's championship ambitions last week, but sadly threw it all away. But he's second fastest at the moment. It's Kevin McEntee in third. Rover Rakatamanga, he did this at Spa. He was very quick in qualifying, and he had a good race in the end. He's fourth. And it's Steve Hall. Dennis Penders, this is a really good qualifying session from him so far. In the top 6. He has had a top 10 start. He's been flirting with the top 10 in terms of the qualifying in the last few rounds, but this definitely would be his best effort of the season. Simon White now in 7th. Neil Wright in 8th place. I haven't seen Neil for a few races, as I mentioned earlier on. I'm trying to think, actually, the last time we saw the Porsche out on circuit. If I'm right in saying, I think the last time we saw him was back in round 6, so a good few races ago. Didn't start last week, of course, and he missed out at Alton Park as well. Round 6, of course, just off the top of my head. I haven't seen him since Spa, so it's been quite a while. So anyway, Mark Chapman in 9th place. You've got John Wells inside the top 10. Tony Sokolov, well, he was in 11th place. He's now 12th. We've had Daniel Danu just pop up into 6th place. That's more like it from our championship second place runner at the moment. Tom Creed just in front of Jordan Harden in the Mustang, not just on track, but also in terms of time. Only a tenth separated them. And then Richard Gearman, the last of the drivers, within a second. But look how close that is, ladies and gentlemen. 15 cars separated by less than 1 second. The Aston Martin of Tony Manley is 16th. Then it's Ardy van Sloot, it's Michael van der Wal, Rich Jarem in 19th, Miroslav Grasic in 20th, Martin van Reenen just outside the top 20. Nicola Gradan, Linus Littrix, Danny Zoutenbayer and Scott Clark, who is circulating, which is good to see. If you are watching today, do feel free to comment in the stream, the live Twitch stream. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, do also comment as well. It'd be nice to see what you think of the racing. But the top 20 drivers separated by 1.3 seconds, which is really close. 21 if you extend that to Martin van Reenen. Or 22 now, because someone has just popped in a much better effort there. And I'm just looking at what I can see. And I think it was Simon Whiting. Yes, it was. The McLaren, fastest of all. A 128 flat from the McLaren. So, good speed shown there from Simon. I did have him down earlier on this season as being a dark horse for the championship. Sadly, he's not been able to race with us for many of the rounds this season. He's only entered 5 races rather. He retired from round 4 at Imola. But Simon really on pace tonight. He was really quick last week as well. He finished 3rd last time out. And again, for those that don't know, last week, if you haven't watched, that was 3rd place at Suzuka. And there's only one more race after tonight at Kyalami. So this is the opportunity really for Daniel Danu, Josip Kosic, Jordan Harding and even Steve Hall, to be fair, to make some form of inroad on Stuart Packham, who is our championship leader at the moment. I'm going to try and flick through the cars as they come across the line. So John Wells is the next car to come along. He's in 12th at the moment and he stays 12th. No improvement there. Nicola Gradan will come across the line. That's a little improvement from the Ferrari. He goes up to 15th position. The 777 as well, I think that's Kevin McEntee. He's coming towards the start-finish line. No improvement from him. We do have Rover Rakatamanga crossing the line as well. He doesn't improve his position. But let's try and find one of the drivers. Let's get a lap on board. And we've got Rover here. So following the Ferrari into turn 1, second gear for the Ferrari driver. He's going to build his way up through the gears. He's going to get up to 5th gear. This is turn 2, not really a corner in dry conditions, completely flat. Got to spot your braking zone though for turn 3. Rover using all of the curb there and clips it really nicely. A good exit, but just a touch of a wiggle out of 3. Did compromise his exit, and you can see in the top left corner he's down by a tenth of a second. Coming through towards turn 4 at the 100-metre marker, you'll break down through the gears. Rover deciding first is best for him, and he made a lot of time up going into the braking zone, but didn't quite manage to hold it. Turn 5 completely flat, and then turn 6, 3rd gear, 2nd gear, and just got to be patient with the throttle and then get onto it as soon as you can. Use all the exit curb and then through into turn 7, and 3rd gear, nicely done from the Frenchman over the curbs. Turn 8, quick right-hander, not noticeable at all. The last 2 corners though, vital for getting your lap time down, but Rover just gets the line wrong through turn 9. That'll have invalidated his lap, but he'll go again out of turn 10. No improvement from the Frenchman, but still he's in good form at the moment, seemingly looking like he's got the pace today. It's a huge stream of cars in front of the Frenchman. Actually, they're all bunched together. It looks like Packham, looks like no, it's Martin van Reenen who's in the mix there. I think Steve Hall is, and Miroslav Grasic. So yeah, quite a mix going on. Danny Zoutenbayer yet to set a lap time, and of course Danny Zoutenbayer was my driver of the day not so long ago. He was absolutely fantastic when he finished in 2nd place last week. A couple of drivers obviously got bumped up, but Zout had a wonderful drive really put in a good performance. So today, I'm expecting him to be a little bit higher up the order than what he is at the present moment. He's got John Wells just behind him. 4.5 minutes just over remaining in this session. Best lap so far is a 1:33 flat, but that's obviously not a valid lap time. We will ride on board with the Ferrari driver. Let's get a heads up display there. You can see it on front of us, but let's get a tracking shot here inside the car. You can see the lines that the Ferrari man is taking a much wider line through 5 to line up turn 6, but I feel like that compromised him a little bit there. Danny can go certainly further over to the right hand side at 5. Clips the curb at turn 7. Nice and steady lap so far. He's 9 tenths up, so it's going to be a 32. If he can get this last 2 corners sorted out, he'll get into the 31s, I'm sure. Third gear, he upshift to 4th. Will that invalidate it? He did back off there. A little bit of a slide through the final corner. This is going to get him into the 31s. Will this be a valid lap time for Zoutenbayer? Yes, it is. There's a 29.1 in the end, so the timing tower was incorrect, but that moves him to 18th. So more time to come from the Dutchman. He's got 3 minutes to do so, so he should have enough time for 3 more flying laps. Let's just get a quick back to the overview. So Whiting in first. It's Kosic now into second. And then Packham in third place. Daniel Danu, the championship second place runner currently, he's 4th. Kevin McAtee's 5th. Sokolov, that's much more like it from the Croatian. He's up to 6th place in the grey and red Ferrari. And black as well, I should add. You've got Steve Hull, who's just in 7th at the present moment. You've got Rover Rakatamanga in 8th. Jordan Harding's moved his Mustang into 9th. Whilst this, in theory, could be a Ford Mustang track, I feel that it's not as light on tyre wear, nor is it as light in terms of handling compared to the Ferraris, the McLarens, and arguably the BMWs as well. So the Ford drivers are going to have a brilliant car from turns 1 through to 4, but then after that they're going to have a bit of a struggle. But still, Jordan Harden in 9th place. Dennis Penders rounds out the top 10. Mark Chapman in 11th position. Neil Wright in 12th. John Wells has slipped down to 13th, but this is still promising from the Mercedes driver. He'll have a good car as well round here, will John. The British driver, he will be perfectly positioned in that Mercedes. There's Tom Creed in 14th place as well. So just showing you that the Mustangs are struggling a little bit. Jordan Harding has gone quick. He's just moved up to 8th place, actually. See Ardy van Sloot coming towards the start-finish line. He's the first driver just outside of a second at the moment. Next up is Scott Clark. See what lap time he does. Doesn't make any improvements. Mark Chapman will be the next one to come along. He doesn't make any improvements. Steve Hall is up to 5th. And then you've got a flurry of cars. Josip Kosic, pole position for the time being. That's a good effort. A 28 flat from him as the other drivers fly across the line. And Simon Whiting will not be starting on pole position. He's in the pits. It's not enough time now to get out there. And nor for Stuart Packham either, even though it says he's not, his indicator says he's not in the pits, but he actually is. Tony Sokolov's in the pits, as is Steve Hall, Daniel Danu as well. So the top 6 are all in the pits. So they clearly can't find any more time. So let's have a look at the other drivers. It's Michael van der Waal who's just crossed the line. He's in 20th. You've got as well coming up to the checkered flag, you've got Danny Zoutenbayer. He doesn't improve. John Wells doesn't improve either. You also had, I think it was Nicola Gradan. Yes, it was, coming across the line. Jordan Harden again. Will he get another lap in? He will. There's a whole heap of cars coming along now. It's going to be very, very challenging to keep up with all of them. I shall do my best. Richard Gearman is in the pits, but Ardy van Sloot's got another lap in him. And he does indeed. So he's got one last flying effort. Everyone else, though, that is it for now. So Mark Chapman will see the checkered flag here, and that puts him in the top 10. So that's 9th place for him. Miroslav Grasic, would you believe it, he's 1.1 off the pole position time and he's 19th. Runs a little bit wide out of the final corner. Can the Ferrari do anything? He can't. He remains where he is. I think that's Tom Creed pulling into the pits. It is. So the next driver coming up is going to be Michael van der Wal. And then there's a flurry of Danny Zoutenbayer, Nicola Gredan and John Wells. They'll be the next cars to come as Michael van der Wal, the Dutchman, approaches, goes through turn 9, uses all of the curb, runs a little bit wide at 10, very wide and off the road, and I think that's lap time done. Yes, that's abandoned. He's run too wide there, so we'll go to Zoutenbayer as the next car to come across the line. That's much more like it from him into the top 7. John Wells, no improvement from him at the end. We've got Kevin McEntee, he doesn't make any improvements at the end. What about Rover Rakatamanga? The Frenchman, can he do anything? He can stay in 11th place is what he can do. So the last 2 cars left on track, Ardy van Sloot, final corner for the Ferrari. That's a nice exit. He's currently 17th. Can he get his car inside the 1 second window? No, is the answer, unfortunately, for that. So what a qualifying session that was then. So the whole grid separated by 3 seconds. The top 23 is separated by 1.5 seconds. So it's going to be a really close race. Strategy is going to be vital around here. This is something that the drivers are going to have to factor in. Some will decide to pit a little bit earlier. Some will decide to pit a little bit later because of traffic. And that's really going to be crucial around the Red Bull Ring. 2.683 miles of tarmac for the drivers to navigate here in Austria. Jordan commenting, well, that was a close qualifying. It was a close qualifying, very close indeed. We have Josip Kosic on pole position. We've got Simon Whiting in second. We then have Stuart Packham in 3rd position. I believe it's Daniel Danu in 4th place. And I know as well that Steve Hall is also in the top 6. Unfortunately, from our perspective, we can't actually scroll up the timing tower, which is a little bit frustrating. But nevertheless, you've got Danny Zoutenbayer in 7th, Kevin McEntee in 8th, Jordan Harden in 9th. Row 5 is rounded off by Mark Chapman. Row 6, you've got Rover Rakatamanga and Dennis Penders. Neil Wright and John Wells make up row 7 with Tom Creed and Nicola Gredan in 8th row. 9th row, you have R.D. Van Sloot and Richard Gearman. And then rounding out the top 20, we have Miroslav Grasic and Michael van der Wal. Row 11, you see the Aston Martin of Tony Manley and Rich Jarram, with in 23rd and 24th the 2 BMWs of Martin van Reenen and Linus Littrix, and Scott Clark has a row all to himself. There you go. I did say that Steve was in the mix in the top 6 there. Daniel Danny is actually 6th place. It's Tony Sokolov in 4th. So apologies on that one for the Spaniard. Put him 2 places higher than I thought he actually was, and what he actually is. So we've got a minute and a half before the drivers do their formation lap. Let's have a quick run through of the championship standings just to give you some context. Stuart Packham leads the way on 194 points. Daniel Danu is second, 11 points further back on 183. Josip Kosic is third on 181, with Jordan Harding on 178 and fourth. Steve Hall and Mark Chapman and Tony Sokolov are all on 172 points, tied for 5th place. Then, subsequently, Dennis Penders is in 8th place on 139. Ross Harris is 9th on 129 points. And John Wells is 10th on 126. But realistically, it's the top 7 drivers in the championship who stand a chance at winning Season 9 here with ACC Race Nation. Got an exciting hour in front of us, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a good one.
20 seconds. seconds.
So the race engineer giving us the countdown. We've got Kosic with this big flashing 43 there. Not ideal to have when you're trying to spectate. There we go. Kosic gets us underway with the... Ooh, he slowed right down and then he caught Simon Whiting out there. That would have been a bit awkward. The drivers, though, they have to line themselves up now. They have to get in the right mindset. This is going to be a short formation lap. Of course, the track itself is, as I've mentioned several times already, not the longest. You know, roughly 2.6, 2.7 miles long. The drivers will have a short period of time to get their cars in the right place, lined up, ready for what will be a frenetic hour, I believe. Got Scott Clark a little bit further back down the grid there. We've just got a menu that has popped up that I don't want to see. But there we are. We all get to see it as a result of the game deciding it wants to put us there. But nevertheless, we are underway for the formation lap. The drivers, you know, we saw in qualifying just then, we saw 1 minute 29 lap times appearing from a fair chunk of our drivers, which is really, really competitive. If you're wondering, the fastest lap ever in a GT3 car around the Red Bull Ring was set by Christian Engelhardt back in 2017. He did a 1 minute 28.4. So our drivers in this championship only half a second away from the outright fastest lap time. So it just shows you, as I always mention, these guys are at the peak of their game here. They are really fast and competitive. They know their track, they do their practice, they have their setups lined up. And yeah, Christian Engelhardt, he did that in a Lamborghini Huracan. Now, of course, the Lamborghini Huracan driver in our field, Ross Harris, isn't here by the looks of it tonight, which is a great shame. So, unless I have missed him on our broadcast, which would be impressive, or Simon Whiting shoots past Kosic. He wants the Swede to get on with it. And they're now getting into position. They're lining up 2 by 2. Can see that we're just following a couple of cars through here. We've got Tony Manley that we're following. We've got Neil Wright in the Porsche. So if we can't get rid of that little clock that's in the bottom left corner, I say clock, I mean information screen, and that's not the end of the world. We'll find a way. We'll navigate as we always do. As Assetto Corsa Competizioni's unique charms decide to rear their head. But we will ride on board with our pole sitter. Can Kosic get away to a good start as we wait for the green flag to fly? And the race is live here from the Red Bull Ring, and that looks like a good start from Simon Whiting. He's going to be on the inside for turn 1. Will the McLaren break a little bit later than the BMW? They give each other racing room, but the BMW stays in front. A little bit of contact, I think, between the McLaren and the BMW Stuart Packham, but they've got away with that. Tony Sokolov on the inside as we thunder our way towards turn 3, but it's the BMW that's at the front. Good start for him. We can see all the other drivers coming through. Martin Van Rijn and Tony Manley. We've got Neil Wright in the midfield. Probably good to follow someone in the mid-pack, to be honest with you, so we can see if there's any action going on. You've got the 777 of Kevin McEntee. Looks like he's been overtaken by John Wells. So good start for Mr. Wells. Less so for McEntee as we plunge into turn 4. Got Tony Manley trying to defend and push Michael Vanderwall a little bit further wide. But we're looking good so far. Ride with McEntee here. We'll follow him underneath the rear spoiler of the Mercedes. He's going to try and look for a move. John Wells giving him the room. To be fair, he's going to be on the inside for turn number 7. We cut to the outside shot, and yeah, the McLaren goes through. Here comes Neil Wright trying to make his way around the outside. And Kevin McEntee's... Oh, contacted! That's the McLaren in the wall. And John Wells is round as well. Rich Jarram's into the... There's a huge accident. Tom Creed's been caught up in it. Round goes... Oh, the Mustang's gone round. I think Nicola Gradan's one of those drivers as well. Martin van Reenen, it's absolutely carnage for all of those drivers. And I looked like two cars were converging. I could be wrong there. See if we can just come back to the... I know there's a lot of action going on at the front, but John Wells, Kevin McEntee, Tom Creed, Rich Jarram, all of them got caught up. Martin van Reenen's carried on. Nicola Gradan is in the pits, so... Well, I was just about to say what a first lap that was. It would have been fantastic, but alas, no, that was not the case in the end. So Kosic leads. He's got 0.3 of a second on Simon Whiting. Then it's Stuart Packham, Tony Sokolov, Daniel Danny. These guys completely unaware of the incident, of course, that's happened between turns 8 and 9. And it all came about from John Wells and Kevin McEntee colliding. And the exit of this corner, it looked like, from the outside perspective, it did look as if the two lines converged, but the stewards team will be looking into that one, I'm sure. They'll have their opinions and verdicts. Steve Hall in 6th place, Doughton-Bayer in 7th, Jordan Harden, he's held steady in 8th. He's under pressure from Chapman, who's had a good start as Chappers. He's gone up a spot, and he's really applying the pressure to the back of the Mustang in front of him. Rover Rakatamanga just sat inside the top 10. Neil Wright's avoided all that. He was in the midst of all that action, but Neil Wright has got away with it without any incidents. Dennis Penders is in 12th place, so he's slipped outside the top 10. Miroslav Grasic, it's Ardy van Sloot. You've got Richard Gearman, who's under pressure from the Aston Martin of Tony Manley. Let's get some onboards from this camera angle. We're going to have to try and flick through it as best as we can because the bottom left info screen does not want to move for me. But that's a visual representation of the gap we've got right now. Kosic is pushing hard. He's really giving it his all. He wants to try and extend that gap, but when you've got the championship leader behind you, a race winner this season behind you, and 2nd place in the championship, and our reigning champion, all within a second of one another, apart from Sokolov, that's quite hard to do. And Steve Hall won't want to give up his championship without a fight. Of course he won't. He'll really be pushing hard. And Kevin McEntee had a lot of damage. He's still in the pit lane, so nightmare for him. Tom Creed doesn't seem to catch a break either in the last couple of races he's entered. He got caught up in that. It didn't look like it was any of his fault. Steve Hall runs very wide on the exit of turn 10. Zoutenby is just on the edge of this group, as is Harding. And then there's a second back to Rakatamanga and a second back to Neil Wright. So plenty of time till to go in this race. We've only had 5 minutes practically. I would love to be able to remove... Yeah, of course.